Thanks for stopping by again, everybody, for Time to Unite. We're still talking about poverty this month and in general, and then more specifically the COPE experience that we put on as Unite Greater Dallas. And today I have with me a good buddy of mine, Markus Lloyd.
Hello. Hi.
He helped us put it on where we talked last week about Woodcreek Church. And so I just thought, hey, it's a good idea. Let's talk with Markus and get his perspective on the events and what people were saying about it afterwards. Markus, thanks for being with me again
absolutely.
today.
Pleasure.
If you would, just kind of, in general, give me an overall perspective of the cost of poverty experience.
Yeah, gosh, it's funny because I had never done a poverty experience before. I'd heard about them, and many people on my team had talked about how just life-changing that the poverty experiences were. And so I didn't really know what to expect. Even with the description, I was kind of like, yeah, but how do you do that? And I was really taken aback by the type of situations that the poverty experience were able to create, and how real I think it felt to a lot of different people. Obviously, it wasn't real because they weren't actually in poverty, but to be able to be in situations where they had to sort of role play out what they would do if this was a situation they found themselves in, it was really eye-opening. We had so many great responses to it. People who were emotional. You could see people's blood pressure going up through this time when they were going through some of the weeks, as it were. It was just an overall, just really wonderful experience. I can't wait to have it back.
Yeah. So you played a specific role in it. You weren't just in it general. Tell us a little bit about the role you played, and even though there was some comedic humor into it just because of your personality, the significance of what occurred with that role and why it worked that way.
Yeah, because we got to come in early and pick what character we wanted to play, and since I kind of lead the whole thing, I picked first because I was just determined. I wanted to be the police officer. I just wanted to do it and see what that was. And you had to work, right, not to make it very comedic, and with my background in acting and whatnot, I kind of really wanted to lean in on it a little bit and just kind of try to help keep the mood of what it actually looks like to be in a space where a police officer is coming in. So I chose to play the police officer different for each sort of week. So sometimes I was a police officer that was very rational and like what you desire a police officer to be. And then there were times I played sort of police officers that have been there a while maybe and were maybe jaded and then there was kind of the corrupt police officer where I planted drugs on an old lady and then took her in and it was fun to watch her sort of the deal with that injustice, right? And then catching the kids who were dealing drugs and things like that. I mean, we even had one time where one of the kids got thrown to the ground and handcuffed in there, and he played along with it as well. So, but I think just being able to kind of, as a police officer, just to be thinking about all the different ways in which you had to police the environment that you were in was kind of overwhelming.
Do you feel like, and this is something that people kind of get to know over time, just with the experience itself, the weeks are broken up into they're really short time frames, and I think there's four within this
15-minute sessions, I think.
Yeah. Right. So the amount of time people have to accomplish whatever their goal is very short, and purposefully it creates a sense of urgency, anxiety, the stress that's there. So people can go from week 1 to week 4 and go from smiling to really upset very quickly. So just in general, I think there's a concept, and I talked a little bit with Paul about this in our meeting last week, but there's a perception that because we're in Dallas or we're in a suburb of Dallas on the north side, that poverty doesn't come to play and doesn't show up on our doorstep. And I kind of feel like just from experiences that I've had and talking with other people, that's not necessarily the case. What's your perception of that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I think COPE helps with. First of all, living in this environment, there are all these sort of thoughts that we have, these connotations about poverty and what that means, what that looks like, what it should be, as opposed to maybe what it is. And in this environment, particularly in like the COPE experience, like you said, you'll have people that start off, they have a house and there's certain things, whatever, and then it just takes like a job loss, or it takes a car issue, or something of that nature, something where if you're living in if you're predominantly, upper middle class area, these things don't affect you all that much, particularly like a flat tire. But then you start to see how it compounds upon itself. And then even those folks who maybe have a job but lose their job, and we find out how quickly any of us can be in the food line. Based on just, we're one check away. When I worked at a food pantry for years, I would go there and you'd see people drive up in their BMWs, and it's because they had lost their job like a week or 2 weeks before, right? And so we would always say you're one check away from being in the poverty line. And so and there are people who are right now who are living next to us and even in this upper middle class environment that, man, if they lose a job tomorrow, they're going to be dropped into this material poverty level. And I think that's one of the things that the COPE helps us recognize, and something that we all recognize once we get into this work a little bit more.
Yeah. So for a church who's considering doing poverty experience, or maybe even a business or school who's wanting to bring in, or at least consider the idea of it, can you kind of just speak to how extremely relevant it is, and how valuable doing something like this would be in making sure that your group of people that you're working with are really informed on the issue?
Yeah, man. After the experience, obviously it was done in a church, but after the experience, my brain was just going, I could do this in so many places. I thought a lot of, I obviously work in this environment, which is North Dallas, Collin County. My job is to work with, the relational, spiritual, and materially poor. But I live in the suburbs, right? And so all I can think about were my neighbors, who I would find when we were having conversations at my house, the types of things that they would say about poverty and people in poverty, and the misconceptions, and how much I had to kind of train in the moment. I thought, man, I want to do this with my HOA, right? I want to do this at the clubhouse or whatever in my neighborhood, just so that people can get a sense of it. Because I feel like more people, particularly those who've never had experience in poverty, or well, I don't know what B is, but have ever had experience in poverty, or have no experience with people in poverty. There's so many misconceptions, and this particular experience was so eye-opening for them that I just couldn't think of any place that this would not be successful and not be needed in our present climate right now.
So, just thinking about that mentality that people can really easily step into, of they're just not trying hard enough, or they're being lazy. I grew up in Louisiana, and kind of the backwoods, very kind of rural area, not a huge population. But even there, and even with people I know today, the thought of someone who's struggling with something, it must be their fault. It must be them not trying hard enough. For those out there who are like, that's their mentality, and it's what could you say that could maybe shed some light on the ignorance? Right. And I think it really is ignorance of the subject matter.
Well, I mean, that's verbatim conversation I had with a friend just the other day. We were just, parlaying and having a discussion about it. And that's kind of one of the things he said. Like, he was like, I'm just trying to understand, like, people who are in poverty or whatever, why don't they just, like, they have all these options. They have all these, government programs and all these things why don't they just try harder? And I was going, I don't even think you understand that and this is one thing that COPE really does well, and they actually work a lot harder than we do. Right? Because it's not that they just have to go to work and come back home and that's their life. It's like work, life, all those things are all have issues and have problems that are not easily solved. So I just kind of talked about it a second ago, the example of a flat tire, right? For me and most of the guys who live around me, we work in careers. Right? Like we have careers. Like it's not a job, it's a career. And I have the kind of flexibility in my job. Like if I get a flat tire, I just call my boss and say, hey man, I'm going to be a minute, right? I'm going to stay here or whatever, and I'll just work from home, whatever. And then what do? I call AAA. AAA comes out, while I'm working from my house and they fix my tire, I get my car and I drive off to work, right? But I have to afford AAA. I have this money and these careers.
Yeah.
Now, those who are in poverty, they've got a job they're going to. They don't have extra income where they have AAA. When they get a flat tire, right, they have got to find someone to come and either fix that flat tire, which is going to cost, right? If you get a tow truck someplace, that's going to cost some money. To change the tire, they got to pay for the tire. They may not have money for the tire. And then if they don't go to work that day, they could get fired for not going to work. So they got to find somebody they know to take them to the job, get them back from the job. And at the same time, when they come back from the job, they still got to figure out this tire.
Yeah.
Right? So every day until they get enough money to figure out this tire, they got to figure out somebody to get them back and forth to the job. Now, if they don't go to the job, it's not like a career where, we just take a time off and we'll figure it out. No, they're going, you didn't come in for the job, you're fired. So now this person gets fired. Now they don't have a car, right? They can't afford a tire, and they don't have means to even save up money to afford the tire. So now they're going to take the bus to go look for a job. And you see how much work it takes just from a flat tire.
Yeah.
And we think about it as they don't try hard, whatever. But it's like they try hard, but there's so many things just in life in some ways that hinder their ability to try hard in these areas that we think they need to try hard in, that we just don't even understand it. Yeah.
So before we go, I wanted to just kind of address a group that you're a part of that you kind of lead up, Threaded.
Sure.
And some of the initiatives that are taking place here in Dallas. And I think we have a kind of a bigger event coming up called Reconcile.
Yeah.
If you just want to share a little bit about that and just like let people know, and we can get the word out and try to get as many people there and involved in this subject.
Yeah, that's great. I do lead an organization called Threaded, and our mission is to inspire relationships, reconciliation, and collaborative action among the diverse body of Christ. So it's particularly to try to help the church live into its understanding of diversity, which has already been created for us by Jesus dying on the cross for all of us and breaking down the walls of hostility between us and creating a new identity for us to own. But we recognize in the church that there are still these sort of homogenous sort of ways that we do life, whether it's on church on Sunday or the ways we do life just in our environments that we go to, our schools or whatever. And so we're trying to create ways in which to break down these barriers that we've built up in place of what Jesus already tore down. And so we have this event come and Reconcile, which is happening on June 15th. It's from 7:30 to 10 right at Woodcreek. It's Woodcreek Church. And you can find all this on wearethreaded.org. But we're inviting really ministry, nonprofit leaders into the space and to kind of introduce them to who we are as Threaded, to allow them to have discussion around how we, the church, got to the place we are right now. But then also give them a taste of what it looks like to be in a small group of diverse people, having difficult conversations around some of the catalytic things that are going on in our current cultural and political environment, with instituting some ground rules and things, and then to hear from some ministry leaders who have really decided to go full force into trying to look at diversity and work for that in their spaces, and kind of the ways that they're learning from it, ways that they're succeeding, ways that they're having obstacles. So it's just going to be a great time to kind of get a taste of the things that we do at Threaded. So yeah, anybody, we say ministry leaders, that's kind of our target where we go to, whether that's nonprofit or church or whatever. Yeah. But we'll definitely welcome anybody who wants to get in the conversation, because it's so needed, and we see that there's so much work being done through some of these things that we already have going on.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we got for you this week. I want to thank you for joining me on Time to Unite again. I want to thank my guest, Markus Lloyd, for being a part. And if you want to find out more about the COPE experience, just go to www.unitethechurch.org/COPE. That's COPE. And if you want to find out more about what Markus is doing in Dallas and really nationally, just go to wearethreaded.org. So thanks again, everybody. We'll see you again next time right here on Time to Unite.